Hi, kindergarten friends. This is Miss Leach, and I am so excited to be doing another reading lesson with you today. Yesterday, we talked about asking and answering questions. Give me 1 minute to share my screen with you so we can continue our discussion. So again, welcome to our kindergarten reading lesson. Yesterday, we talked about the story Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. Let's review our learning target from yesterday. I can ask and answer questions about what I read. Let's say that together. I can ask and answer questions about what I read. Again, the question words that we're looking for are who, what, when, where, why, and how. Yesterday, we talked about what we should do before reading. Today, we're going to talk about what we're doing during our reading and after we finish our story. During reading, we're going to think about the author's words. We're going to look at the text and the pictures. We're going to check to see if the story's answers match the questions that we ask. And we're going to think of new questions to ask. After reading, we're going to think about the facts and information from the story that we learned. We're going to check to see if the story's answers match our questions. And we're going to think, what are we still wondering after we read? When we ended yesterday, we saw that Sylvester's parents were very worried when he didn't come home. Tell someone in your house or talk out loud to see if you remember, what did they do? I'll give you a few minutes to talk it over. As we were reading yesterday, the question that I thought about was, how were his parents feeling the longer that the time went by that Sylvester didn't come home? Maybe we'll see our answers in our story today. So yesterday we saw that Sylvester was lost and his parents were so worried about him that they were going and asking all of the neighbors if they had seen Sylvester. So let's read on to find out what else happens in the story and how the story will end. They talked to all children, the puppies, the kittens, the colts, the piglets. No one had seen Sylvester since the day before yesterday. They even went to the police. The police couldn't find him either. All the dogs in Oakdale went searching for him. They sniffed behind every rock, every tree, and blade of grass, in every nook and gully of the neighborhood and beyond, but found not a scent of him. They sniffed the rock on Strawberry Hill, but it smelled like a rock. It didn't smell like Sylvester. After a month of searching the same places over and over again and inquiring of the same animals over and over again, that means they kept asking and asking, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan no longer knew what to do. They concluded that something dreadful must have happened. That means something awful must have happened, and that they would probably never see their son again, though all this time he was less than a mile away. They tried their best to be happy, to go about their usual ways, but their usual ways always included Sylvester, and they were always reminded of him. They were miserable. Life had no meaning for them anymore. They were just so sad that he was gone. Night followed and day followed, night over and over again. Sylvester on the hill woke up less and less often. When he was awake, he was hopeless and unhappy. So something I wonder is, now that he's a rock in this story, why doesn't wishing work after he becomes a rock? So talk to someone in your house about that for a minute, or think out loud about why he can't wish to go back to being himself when he's a rock. I also wonder and ask, how is he going to turn back into a donkey again? He's just sitting there waiting. So when he's a rock in this story, things around him are starting to change. First it becomes fall, then it becomes winter, then it's going to be spring. So I wonder now, or think now, how does Sylvester feel about being a rock? So let's keep reading to find out. So here he is, it's fall now. He felt he would be a rock forever, and he tried to get used to it. He went into endless sleep. The days grew colder. Fall came with the leaves changing color. Then the leaves fell and grass bent to the ground. So already he's feeling very sad because now the leaves have fallen and he feels like he's never going to get back to himself again. Then winter came. The winds blew this way and that. It was snowing. Mostly the animals stayed indoors, living on food they had stored up. So now you can't even see him because he's covered in snow. One day a wolf sat on the rock that was Sylvester and howled because he was hungry. Oh! Then the snow melted. Earth warmed up in the spring sun and things budded. Leaves were on the trees again. Flowers showed their young faces. There still he sits as a rock. One day in May, Mr. Duncan insisted that his wife go with him on a picnic. "Let's cheer up," he said. "Let us try to live again and be happy, even though Sylvester, our angel, is no longer with us." So they went to Strawberry Hill. Mrs. Duncan sat down on the rock. The warmth of his own mother sitting on him woke Sylvester up from his deep winter sleep. How he wanted to shout, "Mother, Father, it's me, Sylvester! I'm right here!" But he couldn't talk. He had no voice. He was stone dumb. Mr. Duncan walked aimlessly about while Mrs. Duncan set out the picnic food on the rock. Alfalfa sandwiches, pickled oats, sassafras salad, Timothy compote. Suddenly Mr. Duncan saw the red pebble. "What a fantastic pebble!" he exclaimed. "Sylvester would have loved it for his collection." He put the pebble on the rock. So I have to wonder now what is going to happen now that he put the pebble on the rock. So I made this a little bit bigger so you could see it better. They sat down to eat. See the pebble on the rock? Sylvester was now wide awake as a donkey that was a rock could possibly be. Mrs. Duncan felt some mysterious excitement. "You know, Father," she said suddenly, "I have the strangest feeling that our dear Sylvester is with us." So I wonder what's going to happen next. There's the pebble on the rock. Oh, how I wish you were here with us on this lovely May day, said Mrs. Duncan. Mr. Duncan looked sadly at the ground. Don't you wish it too, father? She asked. He looked at her as if to say, how can you ask such a question? Mr. and Mrs. Duncan looked at each other with great sorrow. I wish I were myself again. I wish I were my real self again, thought Sylvester. And in an instant, he was. You can imagine the scene that followed. The embraces, the kisses, the questions, the answers, the loving looks, and the fond exclamation. So I'm thinking they must be really happy that he's back now. When they got home, and they eventually calmed down a bit, Mr. Duncan put the magic pebble in an iron safe. Someday they might want to use it, but really for now, what more could they wish for? They had all that they ever wanted. So now that we've finished the story, we see at the end that Sylvester turns back into himself again. How do you think he is feeling now? Turn and talk to someone in your house or think out loud about how you think he is feeling. I'll give you a few minutes to talk it over. I also want you to think about what lesson do you think he learned? This story has a really valuable, important lesson. What lesson do you think it is? The lesson to me is be careful what you wish for. That means if you wish for something to happen, make sure you really want it to happen before it happens, because you never know what could happen. I also saw in the story that Sylvester liked to collect rocks, and he and his family like to go on picnics together. What kind of things do you like to do with your family? Talk to someone near you or in your house about what you like to do with your family, or you can draw a picture. Lastly, I have a fun activity that we can do. Yesterday, we did a reading response where we listened to the story again, and then we looked at a short little video about asking and answering questions. And then we looked at another text about a little girl named Zoe who is looking for the perfect pet. And we asked and answered questions about that. So today we're going to do a writing response. We're going to write about something that we saw in the story. So one of the things that we know in the story for Sylvester and the Magic Pebble is that he made a wish, and his wish was to be a rock when he saw that lion, but he didn't really want to be a rock. He was just trying to be safe. So if you were given the chance and found a magic pebble, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? So I want you to write a sentence, or if you can't write a full sentence, draw a picture about 3 wishes that you would make if someone gave you a magic pebble. Well, kindergarten friends, I am so glad that you were able to do this lesson with me today, and I can't wait to see you again real soon. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and thanks for doing this lesson with me. Bye.